What's up, guys? Welcome back to Inside the 20. It's been a minute, and if you forgot, I'm Drew, and this is Ryan, and we're back to talk about football and all your other sports that you want to hear. So let's go ahead and get started. And first off, we're going to talk about why we were gone for so long, because it's been 2 months now since we've put out an episode. So first of all, Ethan is unfortunately no longer with us. He had to go do some other things, but he may be back eventually. So we appreciate Ethan and everything he did for us, and if he's watching, we appreciate you, man, and hopefully he'll be back soon. First off, I'd like to say, I'm in college. I go to the University of North Texas, and just that, and then I work at Academy Sports Outdoors, so naturally, work and school were a little tough, but I decided, this is the career direction I want to go. I want to be in the sports commentating world, and I want to kind of get used to that, and so we're just going to find a way to make it work. We might not put out a video every week, but we're going to try to. And also, Ryan, he's still in high school. He's a junior in high school, and so he's still doing high school. And so it was hard for him and I to just find a time that correlates. But with that and flag football, he was playing for the flag football team for Founders Class Club Corinth. And in that, they went to the state championship for charter school teams and were able to pull out a win in the state championship. So congrats to them. Congrats to my guys over there. And and so for those reasons, we had to step away for a few months, and even the posts on Instagram weren't able to come out as regularly as they were, and we're going to try to restart that now that the season's ending. The draft process is starting. We love the draft, especially me. I love the draft. So we got to get back into the swing of things, and we're going to try to get content out to you guys every week. So let's go ahead and get into it. First off, we got a week till the playoffs. Today was an important day. Tomorrow is an important day. This video is going to be coming out on Sunday, so definitely an important day for a lot of teams. Preferably, and first and foremost, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. So Ryan, let me go ahead and ask you, what team out of those two do you think will come out and get the win? And if the Colts win, kind of a difficult situation. Let me break it down to you guys. If the Colts win the game against the Jaguars, they are granted a playoff ticket. And so in that, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders play the night game, and so that game would decide who went to playoffs if the Colts win. But on the other hand, if the Colts lose, this leaves room for the Chargers and Raiders to either tie and they both make it, which obviously is probably not going to happen, even though it's a surefire way to get in, or it leaves room for the Steelers or Ravens to get in. And the Steelers actually would get in if they win the game against the Ravens tomorrow, and the Colts lose to the Jaguars, the Steelers would automatically get in. As long as the Chargers and Raiders didn't tie, and one of those teams would be out. So let's go with the idea that the Colts do win, and because it's most likely the Colts will win. If the Colts win, do you think the Las Vegas Raiders or the Los Angeles Chargers are more prepared if they win to get in the playoffs?
I'm gonna have to go with the Chargers.
I agree, because look at what the Raiders have to come through. I really applaud them for it. I really applaud Derek Carr. Derek Carr has had an awesome season with everything that's gone on, from Gruden to Henry Ruggs to Damon Arnett. They've had so many players just come and go with awful situations, and so I agree with you. Now, why do you think the Chargers over the Raiders? More than, and in my opinion, there's more than just the situation with the Raiders that would grant the Chargers. I think they're just a better team overall. But what's your stance on it, and why do you think the Chargers would get over
Justin
the Raiders?
Herbert, he's breaking out this season. I think he has a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and already kind of is right now. But
right.
I think if anything, this is his time to show that he can be a top 10, top 5 quarterback in this league. And I just think the Chargers have more talent than the Raiders.
I would agree with that, especially since they have the receiving core, and their secondary is good. Yeah, the one thing that they're gonna have to control though is the run defense. The run defense has been lacking these past few weeks, and the Raiders, with all their trouble with their receivers, have had to turn to Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake's on IR, but they've had to turn to Josh Jacobs in that run game, to win games. So essentially, it's going to be tough for the Chargers to pull out this win. But I agree that the Chargers will pull out the win. I think that they're just more equipped. Their receiving core is more equipped to win the game. Justin Herbert's, in my opinion, the better quarterback, even though he's only in his second year. And so with that, I think I'm going to have to take the Chargers as well.
Yeah.
an interesting story that's kind of developing is if the Bengals get the win tomorrow against the Browns, and the Bills or Patriots, let me think, because I think would the Bills or Patriots take over? I'm trying to think Herbert versus Burrow, which might actually be a realistic outcome, because if you think about it, especially if the Patriots lose, mm-hmm. they would drop down to the 6th seed. I'm trying to think, is there any way that the Chargers would end up playing the Bengals? Is there any way?
If they get in with the 7th seed, it's possible.
But I highly doubt the Bengals would get the 1 seed.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's possible now because Kansas City.
Yeah. Kansas City won, so I don't think it's possible.
You don't think it's possible for them to play first round? Anyway, that would be a very interesting matchup. I was just trying to kind of brainstorm there, but that would be a very interesting matchup. And so we're excited for the playoffs, and we're going to see how it goes. So let's go ahead and move on. So what teams do you look at this playoffs and say, wow, that team is a pretender? Then what teams do you look at and say, that team is a pretender, that team is a pretender, or that team is a contender? Which ones do you look at and say, this team is definitely going to go somewhere? And then you look at another team who might be highly seeded, but not necessarily going to go as far.
Yeah. And I know we're in Texas, so most of the people we know, they're Cowboys fans, but I think the Cowboys are going to be pretenders this year.
And I agree. And the reason that I agree with that is, first of all, their offense has looked very flat these mm-hmm. past few weeks. On top of that, they're going to have a very similar play, like a very similar game to what Washington versus Tampa Bay was last year, to where whoever they match up with is most likely going to be a better team than they are. Mm-hmm. For example, they're going to play either the Rams or Cardinals is what it's looking like. And so, personally, I think that they're probably slated to not beat either mm-hmm. of those teams, likely. You saw them play the Cardinals. I feel like they might have a shot against the Cardinals, but the Rams are just, their offense is just too firepowered. Yeah. And getting Cam Akers back, Dallas's run defense kind of lacks in some areas. And definitely getting him back it's gonna create a problem for Dallas. But I agree that Dallas is a pretender. But they could definitely surprise us. Every year is a different year. Yeah. But a team that I say, I think this is their year finally, is Green Bay, which is just wild to me because you and I were talking pre-season that it was probably going to be a tough year for the Green Bay Packers, and they've come out and been the best team in the league. So I look at the Green Bay Packers as probably the best team in the playoffs and in the NFL at this current moment. And they're going to get a bye. And coming out of that bye, they're going to play the lowest seed, which is most likely going to be the Rams or the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to have an easy road to the Super Bowl. But, if they end up getting, Dallas, or if they end up getting Los Angeles or Arizona, they're definitely the team that can take those teams down. We can't forget about Tampa Bay, right? Yeah. We can't forget about Tampa Bay. They're going to play San Francisco, and San Francisco has a rookie quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo has a torn something in his thumb, torn UCL or something, and they're going to play Trey Lance, and it's going to be tough for Trey Lance, and I don't think they're going to be able to pull it out, especially if they are slated to play Tampa Bay, which would mean if they win against the Rams, which they probably will, because the Rams are just never able to beat them for whatever reason. They're just always stumped by Shanahan. They're most likely going to play Tampa Bay. And with that, it's going to be tough for them to eke out a win, especially with Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. So you can't forget about Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay and Green Bay is definitely going to be the matchup to see in the NFC Championship. And so that's definitely something to look forward to as well. But flipping over to the AFC, which is a little bit tougher to kind of figure out who's a pretender and who's a contender. Who do you say is the definite contender, and then who do you say is the pretender? Because in the AFC, it's a little murkier.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think all of these teams could go as far as any other team in this playoff picture.
I would totally agree with that.
They all have similar records too, and we've seen most of the teams play each other. It's all been close. It's not like one team is 100% better than another team.
Exactly.
But if I had to pick right now, I like Tennessee because Derrick Henry's coming back.
I like Kansas City.
But
I like Kansas City.
Yeah. It's hard to say, but if Derrick Henry comes back and he's completely healthy, I don't see anyone stopping Tennessee.
And that makes sense. And that like it's a valid reason. And Tennessee's passing game needs to get into sync, but I don't really see them having a problem with that, especially if Derrick Henry's back. They're most likely going to match up with either of, because they're probably going to get the 1 seed, unless the Texans play spoiler, which could happen. You never know, but they're most likely going to get the 1 seed and play either Cincinnati or Indianapolis coming out of the wild card, and either of these teams could be, burning for a win, itching for a win, especially Cincinnati and Indianapolis for that matter. Either one, and that could be a good game as well. And like I said, I like Kansas City as well. I think we can never discount Patrick Mahomes. He's like Tom Brady. We can never discount him. We can never count them out. They started off the season 3-4 and are now, fighting for the 1 seed. So, as of right now, they have the 1 seed since the Titans haven't played yet. And so, with that, I think we can't discount Kansas City. And I think they could totally, with this revamped offensive line and their defense playing as well as it is, with their new additions, I think they could definitely make a statement in the playoffs. I think they definitely could. And so it's very likely that we see a rematch of last year, or even Green Bay, Kansas City, or Green Bay, Tennessee. We could see any of these various matchups. Green Bay, Tennessee would be insane.
I'm gonna disagree with you. Call me biased, but I don't think Green Bay is gonna make it past.
And that is a very good point to make. Aaron Rodgers is just not good in the NFC Championship. He's just not. I mean, he's got that clutch gene, but his team just doesn't play up to par in the latter half of the playoffs, and so that is concerning. So I totally agree with you. But I think if they were gonna do it any year, it would be this year. I think that they've got a shot this year for sure.
Yeah. I just think they're either gonna play Tampa Bay or the Rams. There's no way both of those teams lose in the first round. If both of those teams lose in the first round, though, let's say hypothetically, I think Green Bay makes it.
Right.
Because I think they can beat the Cowboys, they can beat the Cardinals. I just don't think that Tampa Bay or the Rams are going to lose to the Packers.
And that's a fair point. Especially, I could see the Rams maybe slipping up and losing the Packers, but Tampa Bay, I just think is just too good. Even though they've had that issue with Antonio Brown, they don't have Godwin, but they just have so many weapons. I mean, Brashad Perriman has been great. So, who knows? Who knows? It's going to be an interesting playoff, and we'll keep you guys updated with our thoughts of the playoffs, and we might put out a prediction bracket or two later on. So, keep holding for that, and we'll get you guys out with more content for that. Now, moving on to the draft, because it is draft time, and we take draft seriously over here, especially me. So, I do have a big board, and I will go ahead and we'll go ahead and share it with y'all on Instagram. We'll get something created, and we'll go ahead and share it with y'all. We'll also share some mock drafts here coming up. But first of all, I like to kind of go over some players that I like in the draft, and then Ryan's going to go over some players that he personally likes in the draft. So, before we start that, though, I do want to ask you, Thibodeau or Hutchinson? Because it's likely those are the first two picks, because obviously Thibodeau is the more of the project that teams would have to be willing to take on the project, and then on the flip side, Hutchinson is the more rounded prospect, and I think Hutchinson can even play some inside, some inside defensive linemen, some what do they call it, three technique, 5 technique. And he's really versatile, and then you got Kayvon Thibodeau, who's just a freak. And so, if I was to ask you today, if the draft was today, would the Jaguars, who are most likely going to get the first pick, take Thibodeau, or would they take Hutchinson?
I think as it stands right now, obviously it's a 1A, 1B for most people. Is. But if you're the Jaguars, and you don't have, let's say, they don't hire a coach that's like, they're probably not going to hire a coach that'll be a top 10 the first year. But with that, your progression on your rookies isn't going to be as great as if you had, let's say, a top 10 coach. And with that, that's probably why I'd pick Hutchinson over.
He's the more definite prospect. In my opinion, I would honestly take Thibodeau, though, because you look at the Jaguars organization, and they're very patient. They waited that long to fire Urban Meyer, which is just, why?
Yeah.
They waited that long to fire Urban Meyer. They're a very patient organization, and I think they're willing to be patient with Thibodeau, even if, he's got injury concerns right off the bat, and there's some things that are kind of right off the bat. I think they're willing to be, patient because they know they're not going to be good now, and they got some things to build on. And then naturally, the team who's picking second would just take Hutchinson, whether or not they're willing to wait. Because I think Detroit's the second pick at the moment, and I think Detroit, they're not going to really care. So they're just going to take the best player available, and that's definitely Hutchinson. But I would say Thibodeau is probably going to be, in my opinion, the first overall pick. But I could be wrong. Because it's really an open wide door right now, and I don't really think we're going to have a definite answer until draft night. Because, obviously the past 3 years we've known, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the first overall pick, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, even, back to Baker Mayfield. That was probably more solidified than this pick is now. And I think that this pick was probably more definite at the beginning of the season than it is now, which is just crazy to me. And I think Jacksonville's going to be picking first overall. This is probably not the last time that they're going to be picking first overall, so I think they want to make the most of it. But naturally, they're a patient team, and they're probably going to be willing to take a chance on Thibodeau. So that's my side of the argument, and that's your side of the argument. So got two sides to the argument here. Now, let me ask you, who is your favorite quarterback?
You said. I heard two different things.
Who is your favorite quarterback?
Quarterback.
Not corner, because that's, obviously there's a definite answer for that one. Even if he's a little injury prone, it's most likely Derek Stingley from LSU. But like quarterback with a Q, there's not really an answer for that. There's not really an answer for that.
It's not great at all.
It's not a good class for quarterbacks. However, there are some guys who could definitely go top 10 first round and be, a successful quarterback in the NFL. So, in your opinion, Ryan, I want to hear, kind of an analysis, maybe a brief analysis, and I'll kind of go more into it. But, in your opinion, like who is worthy of going top 10? Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett or someone else?
I think those are the only two. I think, what was it? We had our top 3 quarterbacks, and now none of them are even.
Well, who do we
top
have?
3.
Who do we have at the
Spencer Rattler. I had Sam Howell. He dropped a little bit.
He probably should go first round still. I think Malik Willis might go first round still.
DJ.
DJ's young. He's got some years.
He's gonna transfer though.
Will he?
With Cade coming in, yeah. Kid from where you go?
Westlake.
Yeah. DJ's just not gonna succeed at Clemson. But
it's crazy. It's just weird to me. We're going to get off on a little tangent here, but it's just weird to me because he's got such a strong arm. Why do they do checkdowns?
It was honestly embarrassing to watch Iowa State play Clemson because with how many players we had out, and we still put up a fight with their full team, it's not a good look. Especially with, I think he averaged like 4.5 yards per throw.
Like I said, he's got such a big arm, and that was the draw on him when they recruited him was his arm, and then they used him for checkdowns. They used him like Tua Tagovailoa, who has no arm. Not a knock on Tua, he just doesn't have the arm like DJ, but they use him like Tua. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But back to the quarterbacks of the draft. Personally, I'll go ahead and say who I would take first. I would take Kenny Pickett. And I know that's probably a little controversial, and a lot of you would probably take Corral over Pickett, but I'll give you my number one reason as to why I want to take Pickett. He's older. He's got more experience. He's more mature. And on top of that, he's ready to play now.
Yeah.
So, like, teams who desperately need a quarterback, i.e. the Steelers, the Washington football team, yes, they need a quarterback. Heineke's not that guy. I guess Atlanta, if they move off Matt Ryan, there's multiple teams who would be willing to take Pickett, and he could start day one, right? Carolina. Matt Corral would probably have to he would have to have some grooming. And on top of that, he just injured himself in the bowl game. Now, I really, really respect him going out and playing in the bowl game. Let me preface with that, because a lot of guys, including Kenny Pickett, choose not to play in their bowl game so they don't get hurt, which, it makes sense, but, I really respect guys going out there playing with their teammates for one last time. Even if he did sustain the injury, and that might drop his draft stock a little bit, although he's a quarterback, he's probably safe from that. I really think it's really respectable how he came out and still played. So I really like Matt Corral, and I really think that if Pittsburgh was to make a move on him, I would be really honored to have him as our quarterback. And I think that he's very let's do some comparisons here. I would probably compare Kenny Pickett to like, I would say Matt Ryan. It's very good. It's a good comparison for him. Now let me pull up my big board and I can go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about what I think about these guys. But I'll give you my write-up for these guys. But Kenny Pickett kind of breaks he breaks my top 20. He barely breaks my top 20. So I said Pickett's season was a memorable one for sure. And his improvisation was his improvement was very Burrow-esque. His pocket presence is spectacular. His arm is strong, and he has the mobility to escape the pocket. I worry about the competition he played, and just that how many looks he will get that he won't necessarily get in the NFL, since he did have the Biletnikoff winner Jordan Addison on his team. Chances are Pickett will go top 10, and I think that he can have a very Herbert-like impact off the bat, like I was saying. But I worry, have we seen his ceiling, is what I worry. And I think the most likely destinations for him are Panthers, Broncos, Steelers. And I gave the pro comparison to Justin Herbert. I think he's very Justin Herbert-esque. He's big. He's got a big arm, and he's a great leader. I think those three things really remind you of Justin Herbert. Now, here's what I put for Matt Corral. The question is Pickett or Corral, and obviously my answer is Pickett. However, it's closer than it seems. Corral and Pickett have the same intangibles: a great arm, poise in the pocket, and mobility. And I actually would say that Matt Corral has better poise better mobility and a better arm. But obviously Pickett has amazing pocket presence, and so that's something Corral probably have to work on just a little bit. But Pickett does it all slightly better. However, Corral's competition was slightly better in the SEC. He did show struggle at times where Pickett did not. He in his sophomore season, he's a junior now, I believe. In his sophomore season, he had a lot of turnovers, and he would play very mistake-riddled football, especially when they were playing good teams. And when they played LSU, I believe he threw 5 picks, and they were back-to-back at some points. And so he just needs to not capitalize. He needs to capitalize on those mistakes rather than repeating them. Is my big thing on Corral. However, Corral will probably go in the top 15. But my guess will take time for him to develop. And my best fits are Panthers and Saints. I think the Saints will probably move on. My pro comparison is Derek Carr. I think he's very Derek Carr-esque. He's got a big arm, able to move really well. And, if he does, in fact, play like Derek Carr, who, was good right off the bat, I think he could be a really good quarterback in the NFL. So, in my opinion, Pickett's over Corral, but it's kind of a toss-up right now, honestly. Now, let me go ahead and tell you guys, I'm really, really, really high on Treylon Burks and Devin Lloyd. But I'll talk about Treylon Burks first, the wide receiver out of Arkansas. He's got it all. I think the one thing that he needs to improve on is concentration drops. He's got some drops on the season, but you watch him versus Texas A&M, you watch him versus who else was he? He was pretty good against Ole Miss. He was really good against, obviously the teams where they just slaughtered them. But Treylon Burks is a beast. I mean, he's got it all. He's got. Here's my write-up for him. Treylon Burks is what they call a menace to society. He is. He's freaky athletic, fast, runs routes, great routes at that, and has elite body control. And he's 6'3", 220, which is like Julio size, which I compared him to Julio. He's my number 1 receiver on the board. Now, that's kind of outrageous. Some people might knock me on that, but I really think he is the number 1 receiver of the draft. What do you think? You got to do some more draft research. Yeah. Come on now.
I haven't really looked top 30 or anything like that because the Bears don't have... I'm more of a Bears guy than I am a full...
Which I understand.
But
I understand that.
I will get some more research done before the next podcast. But one thing I did want to say is Matt Corral. I think if you want to take him that high, I think the Falcons need to do that. Because let's say Matt Ryan plays one more year. You give Matt Corral that time to progress under a veteran quarterback who some might even say Hall of Famer.
I absolutely think so.
And you give him that time. Who can I compare that to? who sat
Mahomes?
behind some. Yeah, Mahomes sat behind.
Alex Smith.
Yeah, sure. Alex Smith for a year, and now But Alex Smith is nothing like Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan's
So,
definitely better.
You give him a quarterback like that to play behind, and you give him the preseason, see how he does. Give him time to progress. He's gonna be great.
I agree. Let's go ahead and move on to our last thing, which is my top 10 mock draft as of now. This draft order is as of December 30th. I wasn't able to update it before the podcast, but I believe the draft order is still standing true at the moment. So let's get started. So my first player, Jacksonville Jaguars. My first player off the board, I already told you guys, Kayvon Thibodeau, edge rusher out of Oregon. And if you saw my big board, you know that I like Thibodeau over Hutchinson. Like I said, I see Hutchinson, or I see Thibodeau with more of the better physical tools, and the fact that Jacksonville has proven to be more patient with players. And they know they're in a rebuilding state, obviously, and they need time to rebuild. They're willing to take a chance in the project. Now, the Detroit Lions, at the second pick, take Aiden Hutchinson, the edge rusher out of Michigan. And although Detroit also knows they're in a stage of rebuilding, you can't just pass up on Aiden Hutchinson. They have a glaring hole everywhere, but namely the front seven. So it's a match made in heaven. Now, at the third pick, the Houston Texans take Derek Stingley Jr. One could argue that Kyle Hamilton, who I absolutely think is the best player in this draft. I think I say that. I think he's the best player in this draft. But his positional value is just not high enough to go number one overall as a safety. However, I think he should probably go at this pick, but I think the Texans will probably take a positional need because they already do have Justin Reed at the safety position. They need help at outside cornerback, and Derek Stingley, who is a little bit hit or miss, I think you can't really miss out on Derek Stingley here because of the potential that he has. Now, number 4, the Jets take Evan Neal, out of an offensive tackle out of Alabama. Evan Neal is just, dude. Ryan, watch number 73 in the championship. He is just a bowling ball. Like, he just doesn't let anyone by him at all on the outside. Now, Alabama's offensive line has struggled at times. However, Evan Neal is not part of the problem. I think he would be excellent for the Jets, and I'd said, Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker are both really, really good young franchise cornerstones. Why not add another to the offensive line and help Zach Wilson out a little more in his development? At number 5, the New York Giants take Ike Mekwonu, an offensive tackle or guard. You can put him anywhere, out of NC State. And I do think this is a little bit of a reach, but I think it's realistic in the sense that the Giants really, really need offensive line, and Ekwonu can play anywhere, and he can fit anywhere, and he can kind of fit any of the Giants' needs at whatever particular time they need it. So I think it would be good for them here at that 5 spot. Now, number 6, the Jets have the pick from Seattle. Finally, Kyle Hamilton goes off the board. And with Marcus May most likely walking in free agency, Kyle Hamilton, you cannot miss on Kyle Hamilton. You cannot miss out on Kyle Hamilton. Especially, the Jets would have a heck of a secondary just with Kyle Hamilton. He is just a phenomenal player. He reminds me of Derwin James, but I think he's better than Derwin James, personally. But we're watching the Cowboys-Eagles game. Looks like Dak did Dak throw the pick there?
It was Gardner Minshew. It was like a tipped pass caught by Devontae.
Interesting. Anyway, you really can't miss there. Now at 7, the Carolina Panthers take Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pitt. I think they need a quarterback, and if Matt Rule's still there, which probably won't be, if Matt Rule's still there by the end of the month, honestly, end of January, they're going to be looking to improve and get him a quarterback finally. Now the New York Giants, the pick from Chicago, takes George Karlaftis here, which I think is a little bit of a reach as well, but he's so good, and he just gets double teamed a lot, but he still breaks through. His numbers aren't ridiculously crazy, but if you look at his double team rate, he gets double teamed so much, it's kind of phenomenal that he has the numbers that he has. He has like 4 sacks on the season. It's kind of crappy, but I think that it's the fact that he got double teamed so much. He's very Myles Garrett-esque. Now, at number 9, the Washington football team takes Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. And the William Jackson experiment wasn't the best experiment. Losing Ronald Darby, now they're definitely left needing a corner. And they either have the luxury of taking a quarterback in free agency, or even in the latter rounds of the draft. You got Desmond Ridder, you got maybe even Sam Howell or Malik Willis, and I think they could take a chance on one of those guys later on. Now at 10, the Atlanta Falcons take DeMarvin Leal, a defensive lineman out of Texas A&M, and the Falcons will be looking for Matt Ryan's successor, but obviously they can probably trade up later on, or even get a guy in free agency that can sit behind, or not even sit behind Matt Ryan, because they might move off in this offseason. I could see that happening, but there's just multiple other ways that they could move off of Matt Ryan. And DeMarvin Leal definitely need help with the front seven, and Leal would help a lot.
Yeah.
So that's my top 10 for now, and it's definitely probably changed since I made it. I'm reading it and I'm like, some of these things I would probably change now, but I'm gonna work on that, and I'm gonna get you guys another draft.
I gotta go off on a tangent here.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna add something actually, because I'm watching the Cowboys-Eagles game, and there's just, I think we talked about this earlier when you said Tyler Huntley might deserve a starting job somewhere next year. And I think there's 3 guys that could possibly have a chance at having a starting job next year. And I think 1, Tyler Huntley. 2, I think Gardner Minshew deserves another chance. He's played 2 games this season, and he's actually been playing over what he should be playing. And I think the 3rd guy, call me biased, but I think Mitchell Trubisky is better than sitting behind Josh Allen. He might be he's obviously an okay quarterback at best, but I think him being behind Josh Allen and having Brian DeBall, I think wherever Brian DeBall goes, because Trubisky's on a 1-year deal. Mm-hmm. So I think what Brian DeBall had going into this season is, if we do good, I have a chance of becoming a head coach. If he goes to a team that needs a quarterback, you have your option in Trubisky there. And I think he's just, if Brian DeBall gets a head coaching job, I think there's a possibility there.
I agree with you. And I've even heard rumblings of the Steelers being interested in Mitch Trubisky, which I wouldn't actually hate. Especially if we focus this offseason on the offensive line, I think that would be a great pickup. Yeah. Any of those guys, really. I wouldn't really want Huntley just because he doesn't really fit our scheme. But Trubisky and Minshew would probably fit really well. More so, I think Trubisky is probably the best bet out of those 3 guys. As much as it kind of pains me to say that, I think that Trubisky's a solid quarterback. Mm-hmm. I think Nagy was the problem more so than him. Obviously, he's not the best. He's not elite or anything, but the Steelers would definitely be able to win some games with Trubisky. I don't think that would be terrible. Mm-hmm. I think it would be better than Rudolph or Haskins. So. Yeah. All right. With that, let's go ahead and wrap up the episode. Great to be back. So excited to be back. And we're gonna go ahead and send you guys off. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. We'll see you again next week, and welcome back to Inside the 20.